My father signed my death warrant with a golden pen, on paper embedded with diamonds. Even my execution was luxury. I watched his hand move across that cream-colored parchment, the kind reserved for royal decrees, the kind that changes lives with a signature. We were in his private study, the one with walls covered in burgundy silk from Lyon, France. The chandelier above us cost more than most people earn in a lifetime. 47 Swarovski crystals, each one hand-cut. I'd counted them as a child, lying on the Persian rug, staring up, wondering if beauty could fill the emptiness I already felt at 7 years old. It couldn't. The pen made no sound as he wrote. Gold doesn't scratch like ordinary metal. It glides. Smooth. Silent. Deadly. Baba, I whispered. My voice cracked. Please. He didn't look up. Kings don't need to look at you to destroy you. But let me take you back to the palace where this nightmare began. Because you need to understand something, I had everything. And I mean everything. Everything except the one thing that could save me. My name is Ameerah. In Arabic, it means princess. And I was one, not metaphorically, not in some cute Instagram caption way. I was born into one of the wealthiest royal families in the Gulf. I'm not going to tell you which country. Not because I'm being mysterious. Because they're still looking for me. The palace I grew up in had 347 rooms. I know because I counted them during Ramadan when I was 12, bored out of my mind between iftar meals. 347 rooms, and somehow I still felt like I was suffocating. The ceilings were 20 feet high in the main halls, hand-painted by Italian artists flown in just for us. The floors were Carrara marble, so polished you could see your reflection. I used to stare down at myself as I walked. A girl in a designer abaya, drowning in silk, suffocating in gold. My bedroom alone was larger than most homes. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Gulf, water so blue it looked fake, like someone had photoshopped the ocean. My closet was a separate room, 400 square feet of couture. Dior. Chanel. Hermès abayas custom-made in Paris, each one worth $15,000 to $40,000. I had 47 Hermès bags. 47. I didn't even like half of them. They were just there. Gifts. Status symbols. Proof that we could. I slept in a bed with sheets made from Egyptian cotton, 1,200 thread count. Do you know what 1,200 thread count feels like? Like sleeping on a cloud made of money. And every single night, I cried into those expensive pillows. The palace smelled like oud. Always. That thick, woody, resinous scent that costs $5,000 an ounce. It was burned in every room, mixed with Moroccan rose oil and French perfumes. Expensive smells covering expensive secrets. The air itself felt heavy, thick with incense and lies and the weight of tradition that crushed you slowly, elegantly, like a velvet glove around your throat. Every morning, I woke to silence. Not peaceful silence. The kind of silence that comes from servants who've been trained not to exist. They moved like ghosts, laying out my clothes, preparing my breakfast, anticipating my needs before I even knew I had them. I never made my own bed. Never cooked my own food. Never even opened my own doors. There were people for that. Do you know what it's like to have people for everything except the one thing you actually need? I ate breakfast on china plates trimmed with 24-karat gold. Real gold. I drank from crystal glasses that cost more than a car. Michelin star chefs prepared my meals, flown in from Lebanon, France, India. 5-course breakfasts. Lunch with 7 dishes. Dinners that took 3 hours. And every single bite tasted like ash in my mouth. My father, His Royal Highness, that's what everyone called him, sat at the head of every table. He didn't speak much during meals. He didn't need to. His presence was the conversation. 6'2", broad-shouldered, with a beard trimmed to perfection and eyes that could freeze water. When he looked at you, you felt it in your bones. Not warmth. Wait. The weight of centuries of power, of bloodlines that controlled oil fields and international policy and the fates of millions. He kept a gold dagger on his desk in the study. Ornate handle, curved blade, encrusted with rubies. It wasn't decorative. It was a reminder. This blade has tasted the blood of traitors, he told me once, when I was 9. Family traitors. He smiled when he said it. Not a cruel smile. A teaching smile. Like he was explaining math. My mother, Her Highness, was different. Beautiful in that untouchable way, like a diamond behind glass. She wore Valentino and Elie Saab, custom everything, jewels that had been in our family for generations. Emeralds from Colombia. Rubies from Myanmar. Diamonds so large they looked vulgar, but on her, they looked regal. She moved through the palace like she was floating, her abaya trailing behind her like liquid night. But her eyes were empty. I recognized that emptiness because I saw it in my own reflection every day. If you've never known wealth, trust me. Money is the most beautiful prison ever built. And I was dying inside mine. I had tutors for everything: Arabic, English, French, Quranic studies, mathematics, etiquette. The etiquette teacher was the worst. An older British woman named Ms. Crawford who taught me how to walk, how to sit, how to hold a teacup, how to nod graciously, how to smile without showing too much emotion. Princesses don't laugh loudly, Ameerah. Princesses don't cry in public. Princesses don't have opinions that contradict their fathers. Princesses are perfect, polished, and obedient. I was 23 years old, and I'd never made a single decision about my own life. Every day was the same. Wake up. Prayers at dawn, 5 times a day, every day, my entire life. Kneel on a prayer rug worth $30,000, face Mecca, recite the words I'd memorized before I could write my own name. Allahu Akbar. Subhana Rabbil Adhim. Words that echoed in the private mosque attached to our palace and disappeared into a sky that never answered. I had everything a woman could want. Designer clothes. Luxury cars I wasn't allowed to drive. Private jets. Vacations in Monaco, Paris, Maldives, always with guards, always with chaperones, always with eyes watching. I had wealth beyond imagination. I had zero freedom. I had 47 Hermès bags and 0 choices. And then, one night, everything changed. It was a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays smelled different. The servants prepared the palace for Jummah prayers, burning extra oud, laying out fresh carpets. I was in my chambers, and I couldn't sleep. I'd taken Ambien, prescribed by our private physician, but it wasn't working. My mind wouldn't stop. I got up. Walked to my window. Looked out at the Gulf. The water was black under the moonlight, and somewhere across that water were people who could choose their own lives. Who could love who they wanted. Believe what they wanted. Be who they wanted. I pressed my forehead against the glass, Italian, bulletproof, imported, and I whispered into the darkness, there has to be more than this. And that's when I saw it. On my nightstand. A book I'd never seen before. Small. Leather-bound. No gold. No jewels. Just, simple. I walked over. Picked it up. My hands were shaking. The cover said one word, Bible. My heart stopped. In my world, that book was more dangerous than a bomb. The night I found that book, everything changed. I should have thrown it away immediately. I should have called the guards, reported it, let them investigate which servant had committed this unforgivable breach. Bringing a Bible into a royal palace in our kingdom wasn't just forbidden, it was haram, criminal, punishable. People disappeared for less. But I didn't throw it away. I opened it. The pages were thin, almost translucent, covered in small print. It fell open to a section called John. I didn't know what that meant. I started reading, standing there in my silk nightgown that cost $3,000, in a room worth millions, holding a book that could cost me everything. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. I read that sentence 7 times. God loved the world? Enough to give his Son? Not demand. Not require. Not test. Give? I'd been taught my entire life that Allah was merciful, but distant. Powerful, but unreachable. We submitted. We obeyed. We performed. And maybe, if we were good enough, if we prayed enough, if we followed enough rules, we might be found acceptable. Might earn paradise. Might be enough. But this said God loved. Past tense. Already done. Finished. I sat on the edge of my bed, a custom-made piece from Italy, mattress designed by sleep scientists, frame carved from Lebanese cedar, and I kept reading. I read until my eyes burned. Until the call to prayer echoed through the palace at dawn. Until I heard footsteps in the corridor and had to shove the Bible under my mattress like a criminal hiding evidence. Because that's what I was now. A criminal in my own home. I did this for 3 weeks. Every night, after the servants left, after the palace went quiet, I'd lock my doors, 12-foot-tall doors with gold handles, check for cameras, pull the Bible from its hiding place, and read by the light of my phone. Like a thief. Like a traitor. Like someone who'd found water in the desert and couldn't stop drinking. I read about Jesus healing the sick. Forgiving sinners. Touching lepers. Eating with prostitutes and tax collectors. Loving the unlovable. I read about him being beaten, mocked, crucified, and then rising from the dead. I read about grace. A word I'd never truly understood. And slowly, terrifyingly, I began to believe it. My father noticed the change first. Kings don't survive by being blind. They survive by seeing everything, knowing everything, controlling everything. And my father was a king in every sense, not just by title, but by nature. He ruled our family the way he ruled his portion of the kingdom, absolutely. It was a Tuesday morning. I was summoned to his study. When you're summoned to my father's study, you don't ask why. You go. Immediately. I walked through the palace hallways, my footsteps echoing on marble floors. The walls were lined with portraits, my ancestors, generations of kings and princes and warriors who'd built this dynasty on oil and blood and ruthless precision. They all seemed to watch me as I passed. Judging. Knowing. The hallway to my father's office was exactly 200 meters long. I'd measured it once as a child. I counted every step this time. 154 steps from my chambers to his door. Each one heavier. Each one closer to something I couldn't name but could feel in my bones. 2 guards flanked the entrance. They didn't look at me. They never did. They opened the doors in perfect synchronization. They'd been trained for years to move like machines, and I stepped inside. The study was exactly as I described before. Burgundy silk walls. Swarovski chandelier. Persian rug worth $250,000, antique, hand-knotted, irreplaceable. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the private gardens. And behind the massive mahogany desk, imported from England, sat my father. His Royal Highness. The man who controlled billions. The man whose word was law. My father. He didn't look up when I entered. He was writing something, always signing decrees, always moving the chess pieces of power. The gold pen moved smoothly across paper. That pen had signed oil contracts worth billions. Had signed marriage arrangements. Had signed execution orders. Sit, Ameerah, he said quietly. Softly. That's when I knew I was in trouble. My father didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. When he was angry, he got quieter. Softer. More controlled. The quieter he got, the more dangerous he became. I'd seen him whisper a man's name once, just a name, just 3 syllables, and that man was never seen again. I sat in the chair across from his desk. Leather. Italian. Probably worth more than most people's cars. My hands were shaking, so I folded them in my lap, hidden beneath my abaya. He finished writing. Set down his pen, that golden pen, and finally looked up at me. His eyes were black. Not brown. Black. Like oil wells. Deep and dark and impossible to read. Tea? He asked pleasantly, gesturing to the silver service on the side table. Moroccan mint. My favorite. Steam rising from a pot that cost more than I wanted to know. No, thank you, Baba, I whispered. No? He smiled. Not warmly. Drink tea with me, Habibti. It's rude to refuse your father. It wasn't a request. A servant appeared from nowhere, they always did, and poured tea into a crystal glass with gold trim. Set it in front of me. Disappeared like smoke. I picked up the glass. My hand shook. Tea rippled. My father watched me. Said nothing. Just watched. The silence stretched. 10 seconds. 20. 40. In that room, silence was a weapon. He wielded it like the dagger on his desk. Finally, he leaned back in his chair. Steepled his fingers. You've been different lately, Ameerah. I don't know what you mean, Baba. Don't you? He tilted his head slightly. You pray, but your heart isn't in it. I see you during Salah. Your lips move. Your body bows. But your heart. He tapped his chest. Your heart is somewhere else. My throat closed. I couldn't breathe. Where's your heart, daughter? I couldn't answer. If I spoke, I'd break. If I broke, I'd confess. If I confessed. He waited. Patient. Kings are always patient. They have time. They have power. They have infinity. I've been thinking, I managed finally. About life. About meaning. Meaning, he repeated, as if tasting the word. You have everything, Ameerah. What meaning do you lack? Everything, I wanted to scream. I lack everything that matters. But I said nothing. He leaned forward. Suddenly. The movement was so sharp I flinched. Let me tell you what I think, he said, his voice dropping to that terrifying whisper. I think someone has been filling your head with dangerous ideas. I think someone has been teaching you things that contradict what you were raised to believe. And I think. He opened a drawer in his desk. My heart stopped. He pulled something out. Placed it on the desk between us. My Bible, the small, leather-bound Bible I'd hidden under my mattress, wrapped in scarves, buried beneath layers of fabric and secrecy. He'd found it. The room spun. The chandelier above seemed to tilt. I gripped the armrests of the chair to keep from falling. Would you like to explain this? He asked calmly. So calmly. Like he was asking about the weather. Baba, Choose your next words very carefully, Ameerah. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. What could I say? There was no explanation that would save me. No excuse that would satisfy him. No lie convincing enough. He picked up the Bible. Held it between two fingers like it was contaminated. Do you know what this is? Yes, I whispered. Do you know what possessing this means in our family? In our position? Yes. Do you know what reading this makes you? I looked him in the eyes. My father. My king. The man who'd raised me, provided for me, controlled me, owned me. It makes me a seeker of truth, I said. Wrong answer. His expression didn't change. That was worse than anger. His face remained perfectly calm, perfectly controlled, perfectly blank. He set the Bible down. Placed both hands flat on the desk. I have been patient with you, Ameerah. Your mother said you were going through a phase. She's young, she said. She's questioning. I allowed it. I gave you space. But this, he gestured to the Bible, this is not questioning. This is betrayal. Betrayal of what? The words came out before I could stop them. Stupid. Reckless. Suicidal. Of everything. His voice rose, just slightly, just enough to make me jump. Of your family. Your faith. Your people. Your crown. Do you think you can just, he stopped himself. Breathe. Regained control. When he spoke again, his voice was soft. Deadly soft. You are not just any girl, Ameerah. You are a princess. You represent this family. This nation. Every choice you make reflects on us. And this choice, he picked up the Bible again, this choice brings shame. I'm not trying to shame anyone, I said, my voice breaking. I'm just trying to find. Find what? Some foreign god? Some Western religion? You think Jesus will save you? He almost laughed. Almost. Jesus was a prophet. A good man. But he was just a man, Ameerah. He died. Muhammad, peace be upon him, brought the final revelation. The final truth. Everything you need is in the Quran. I've read the Quran my entire life, Baba. And I've never felt. Felt? He slammed his hand on the desk. The sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. The tea glasses jumped. I jumped. Faith is not about feeling, Ameerah. It's about obedience. It's about duty. It's about. He stopped. Closed his eyes. Breathed deeply. When he opened them again, the rage was gone. Replaced by something colder. Something worse. Disappointment. I had such hopes for you, he said quietly. You were always the smart one. The obedient one. Your brothers are fools. Your sisters are vain. But you. I thought you understood responsibility. I thought you understood legacy. Tears burned my eyes. I blinked them back. Princesses don't cry in front of kings. He stood. Walked to the window. Looked out at the gardens, sculpted perfection, maintained by 50 gardeners, beauty manufactured and controlled. You will marry Prince Khalid, he said, his back to me. The world stopped. What? I breathed. In 3 months. Arrangements have been made. Contracts signed. Baba, no. No. Prince Khalid he's 57 years old. He's wealthy. Connected. Powerful. And he's agreed to overlook this incident. He turned around. I showed him this. He held up the Bible. I told him you'd been deceived by a servant who has since been dealt with. What do you mean, dealt with? He ignored me. And he's graciously agreed to proceed with the marriage. He believes a husband's firm hand will correct your confusion. I stood up. My legs barely held me. I won't marry him. Silence. My father walked back to his desk slowly. Deliberately. He picked up that gold dagger. The one that had tasted traitor's blood. Held it up to the light. The rubies glinted. You will marry him, Ameerah. Or you will bring shame on this family so severe that I will have no choice but to remove that shame. Permanently. He wasn't speaking metaphorically. Do you understand me, daughter? I understood. I understood perfectly. My father had just given me a choice, marry a man who would imprison me, abuse me, correct me. Or die. My knees gave out. I sat back down hard. The room spun. The chandelier, 47 crystals, blurred above me. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt crushed, like the palace itself was collapsing on top of me. The wedding is in 3 months, my father said, sitting back down, picking up his pen, returning to his paperwork as if he'd just discussed dinner plans. You will smile. You will be gracious. You will be the perfect bride. And you will never speak of this Jesus nonsense again. Are we clear? I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. Ameerah. Are we clear? Yes, Baba, I whispered. Good. You're dismissed. I stood on shaking legs. Walked to the door. Each step felt like walking through water. Thick, heavy, drowning. I reached the door. Put my hand on the gold handle. Ameerah, my father called. I turned. He was holding the Bible. You won't be needing this anymore. He dropped it into the metal wastebasket beside his desk. And then he lit a match. I watched the pages curl and blacken. Watched the words disappear into ash and smoke. Watched the only light I'd found in 23 years of darkness burn to nothing. That was the night I learned what powerless really meant. I didn't return to my chambers right away. I couldn't. If I went back to that room, that beautiful, suffocating room, I would scream. Or break something. Or throw myself from the window just to feel something other than this crushing, unbearable weight. Instead, I walked. The palace at night was different. Quieter. The servants had mostly retired to their quarters in the east wing. The guards stood at their posts like statues, eyes forward, unseeing. The marble floors gleamed under dim lighting, motion sensor LEDs installed throughout, because even our hallways were smart, modern, controlled. I walked barefoot. My abaya trailed behind me, whispering against the stone. I didn't know where I was going. I just walked. Past the portrait gallery, ancestors who'd never questioned, never doubted, never felt this suffocating emptiness. Past the Grand Majlis where my father held court, where he sat on a throne-like chair and made decisions that affected millions. Past the library, 12,000 books, leather-bound, organized by subject and language. Books about everything except the one thing I needed to know. I ended up at the Palace Mosque. It was attached to the main building, a private place of worship for our family, designed by an architect from Turkey, with a dome covered in gold leaf and walls inlaid with intricate calligraphy. Verses from the Quran written in Arabic so beautiful it looked like art. And maybe that was the problem. Maybe it had become art, something to admire, to photograph, to show off to visiting dignitaries. But not something that reached into your chest and changed you. I stood at the entrance. My feet knew what to do. I'd done this 5 times a day, every day, for 23 years. Remove shoes. Perform wudu. Enter. Pray. The ritual was muscle memory. Automatic. Meaningless. But I did it anyway. Because what else did I have? I walked to the fountain in the courtyard, white marble, water flowing constantly, filtered and heated to the perfect temperature. I performed wudu. Washed my hands 3 times. Rinsed my mouth. My nose. My face. My arms. My feet. Cleansing the outside while the inside rotted. The water was cold. It shocked my skin. I welcomed it. At least it was something I could feel. I entered the mosque. The carpet was Persian silk, handwoven, soft beneath my feet. The mihrab, the niche indicating the direction of Mecca, was decorated with lapis lazuli and gold. Beautiful. Empty. I knelt. Faced Mecca. Raised my hands. Allahu Akbar. God is the greatest. I bowed. Pressed my forehead to the carpet worth more than most people would earn in a year. Subhana Rabbil Adhim. Glory be to my Lord, the Most Great. I sat back. Prostrated again. Recited the words I'd memorized before I could read. The words that were supposed to bring peace. Supposed to bring connection. Supposed to mean something. They echoed in the empty mosque and disappeared into silence. I finished the prayer. Sat back on my heels. And I waited. For something. Anything. A sense of presence. A whisper of comfort. A moment of peace. Nothing. The mosque was silent. Beautiful and silent. Gold and lapis lazuli and silk carpets and emptiness. Please, I whispered into the darkness. Please, I need help. I need to know what to do. I need. My voice cracked. Broke. I need to know you're there. Silence. I'd prayed in this mosque 1,000 times. 10,000 times. I'd recited every verse perfectly. I'd bowed at the right moments, prostrated with the right posture, performed every ritual with precision. And Allah felt further away than the moon. Maybe you think I'm being dramatic. Maybe you think she just wasn't praying right. She wasn't sincere enough. She wasn't devoted enough. But you don't understand. I was drowning, and I was reaching for something, anything, to keep me from going under. And every time I reached, I grabbed nothing but air. I stayed in that mosque for 2 hours. Praying. Begging. Weeping into silk carpets while the call to prayer echoed from the minaret and the guards changed shifts outside and the palace slept around me, unaware that one of its princesses was falling apart in the most beautiful room in the building. Finally, when my knees ached and my voice was raw and my tears had dried to salt on my cheeks, I stood up. I looked at the mihrab. At the gold and the lapis lazuli and the calligraphy that said God was merciful. I don't feel your mercy, I said out loud. My voice echoed. I don't feel anything. No answer. There never was. I left the mosque. Walked back through the silent hallways. Climbed the stairs to my chambers. The guards at my door nodded, expressionless, professional. They opened the doors. I stepped inside. And the loneliness hit me like a physical blow. I was surrounded by luxury. By beauty. By everything money could buy. Silk curtains. Designer furniture. A walk-in closet the size of an apartment. A bathroom with heated floors and a shower that had 7 different settings and a bathtub carved from a single piece of marble. I had everything. And I had never been more alone. The next morning, my mother came to visit. She didn't usually come to my chambers. When she wanted to see me, she summoned me to hers, larger rooms, higher floors, better views. The Queen's quarters. But that morning, she came to me. I was sitting by the window when she entered. I hadn't slept. I was still wearing the same abaya from the night before. My hair was unbrushed. I didn't care. Ameerah, she said, her voice soft. Careful. I didn't turn around. I heard her footsteps on the marble floor. Expensive heels. Valentino, probably. Or Louboutin. She had 200 pairs. She sat down on the chair across from me, a velvet armchair, French design, uncomfortable but beautiful. Your father told me about your conversation yesterday. I said nothing. He showed me the book. Still nothing. Habibti, I need you to understand something. She paused. I could feel her choosing her words carefully, like selecting jewelry. This family has survived for generations because we understand one thing, unity. We stand together. We believe together. We present a united front to the world. When one of us strays, when one of us questions, when one of us. She trailed off. It threatens everything. Everything, I repeated flatly. You mean the money? The power? The image? I mean our survival. I finally turned to look at her. My mother. Her Highness. She was wearing a cream-colored dress by Elie Saab, perfectly tailored. Her makeup was flawless, applied by her personal makeup artist who came to the palace every morning at 6 a.m. Her jewelry was subtle but worth millions. Pearls from the Gulf. Diamonds from her own family's collection. She looked perfect. And her eyes were dead. Are you surviving, Ummi? I asked quietly. Is this what survival looks like? She flinched. Just slightly. But she recovered quickly. I have everything I could want. Do you? Ameerah. Do you love him? I asked. Do you love Baba? Did you ever? Or were you just arranged? Matched? Married for alliance and bloodline and oil contracts? She stood up abruptly. Walked to the window. Looked out at the same view I'd been staring at, the gulf, the gardens, the golden prison extending in every direction. Love is not the point, she said finally. Duty is the point. Family is the point. Legacy is the point. What about happiness? She laughed. Actually laughed. It was a bitter sound, sharp and wrong coming from her perfect lips. Happiness? Ameerah, we are royalty. We don't get happiness. We get responsibility. That's not enough for me. She turned around fast. Her eyes flashed, the first real emotion I'd seen from her in years. Then what do you want? Tell me. What could possibly be more important than your family? Your position? Your future? Truth, I said. I want truth. You have truth. The Quran is truth. The Prophet, peace be upon him, brought us truth. Everything you need. I've read the Quran, Ummi. I prayed 5 times a day since I was 6 years old. I've fasted during Ramadan. I've memorized the verses. I've performed every ritual perfectly. And I feel nothing. Feeling is not. Don't tell me feeling is not the point. I stood up, my voice rising. If God is real, if He loves us, if He cares, shouldn't we feel something? Shouldn't there be? I don't know, peace? Joy? Connection? Something other than empty obedience to rules that don't change anything? My mother stared at me like I'd slapped her. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. I've been pretending my whole life, Ummi. Pretending I'm content. Pretending I'm fulfilled. Pretending that this, I gestured around the room, at the luxury, the wealth, the beauty, is enough. But it's not. It's not enough. And if you're honest with yourself, you know it's not enough for you either. Silence. Long and heavy and dangerous. When she spoke again, her voice was ice. You will marry Prince Khalid. You will do your duty. And you will stop this foolishness before you destroy yourself and disgrace this family. And if I don't? She walked toward the door. Stopped. Turned back. Then you'll learn what happens to princesses who forget their place. She left. The doors closed behind her with a soft click. Gold handles on 12-foot doors. Everything was gold. Everything was beautiful. Everything was a lie. I spent the next 3 weeks in a fog. The wedding preparations began immediately. Designers came to the palace with fabric samples, silk from France, lace from Belgium, crystals from Austria. They wanted to make me the most beautiful bride the kingdom had ever seen. They measured me. Pinned fabric to my body. Talked around me like I wasn't there. She has excellent proportions. The waist could be smaller. We'll need to adjust the neckline for modesty. I stood there like a mannequin. Empty. Hollow. A dress form for their creations. My sisters came to visit, 3 of them, all younger, all excited about the wedding. To them, this was a fairy tale. A princess marrying a prince. They didn't know, or didn't care, that Prince Khalid was nearly 60, that he'd been married 4 times before, that his last wife had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. You're so lucky, Ameerah, my youngest sister gushed. She was 16, naive, still innocent. Prince Khalid has a palace in Riyadh. And one in Dubai. You'll have everything. I already have everything, I wanted to scream. And it's killing me. But I smiled. Nodded. Played the part. The servants whispered. I heard them when they thought I wasn't listening. The one who'd somehow smuggled the Bible into the palace, they never found out who it was, so my father had dismissed 3 of them just to be safe. 3 families destroyed. 3 lives ruined. Because of me. Because I'd been searching for something that apparently I had no right to search for. The crushing loneliness intensified. I was surrounded by people constantly, servants, guards, family, wedding planners, dress designers. Never alone. And never more isolated. Have you ever been in a room full of people and felt completely invisible? Like you could scream and no one would hear you? That's what every day felt like. I walked through the palace like a ghost haunting her own life. I tried praying again. Multiple times. I'd go to the mosque, that beautiful, empty mosque, and I'd kneel and I'd beg. Please, if you're there, show me. Give me a sign. Tell me what to do. I'm going to be married to a man who will destroy me. I'm going to spend the rest of my life in a cage even smaller than this one. Please. Please. Nothing. The silence from heaven was deafening. Maybe you're religious. Maybe you've never questioned your faith. Maybe you think I wasn't praying hard enough, or I wasn't sincere enough, or I wasn't worthy enough. But let me tell you something, I had prayed in the most beautiful mosque in the kingdom, on carpets worth millions, in perfect Arabic, with perfect posture, following every rule. And Allah felt further away than the stars. I had 47 Hermes bags, a closet full of couture, a bedroom larger than most homes, and a father who'd just sold me to a monster. I had 200 people in the palace at any given time. I had never been more alone. The wedding was 63 days away. I counted them like a prisoner counts days until execution. 63 days until I'd stand in a dress worth $500,000 and promise my life to a man I'd never loved. 63 days until I'd be moved from one palace to another, one prison to another, one form of death to another. At night, I'd lie in my expensive bed, staring at the ceiling, and I'd think about that Bible. The one my father had burned. I'd memorized some of the verses before he found it. I'd repeat them in my head like a lifeline. For God so loved the world. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. I am the way, the truth, and the life. Rest. I wanted rest so badly. Rest for my mind. My soul. My heart that felt like it was being crushed under the weight of gold and silk and duty and lies. But maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe Jesus was just a prophet like I'd been taught. Maybe that feeling I'd had when I read those words, that sense of hope, of light breaking through darkness, maybe it was just desperation. Maybe I'd been so hungry for something different that I'd convinced myself there was an answer where there was none. Maybe there was no answer. Maybe this was just life. Duty. Obedience. Survival. Maybe happiness was never the point. I was surrounded by 200 people in the palace. Servants who anticipated my every need. Guards who protected my every step. Family who controlled my every choice. I had never been more alone. And then, on the 45th night before my wedding, when I'd given up hope, when I'd accepted my fate, when I'd finally stopped reaching for something I couldn't have, Jesus came to me. But before he came, I had to fall even further. 45 days before the wedding, I stopped eating. Not intentionally. Not as some dramatic protest. I just couldn't. Food tasted like cardboard. Like ash. The Michelin star meals prepared by our private chefs, Lebanese mezzi, French pastries, Indian curries, Japanese sushi flown in fresh, all of it sat in front of me like beautiful poison. My mother noticed first. You need to eat, Ameerah. You're getting thin. The dress won't fit properly. The dress. Always the dress. As if the most important thing about my impending doom was how I'd look in designer fabric. I lost 8 pounds in 2 weeks. My collarbones started showing. My abaya hung differently. The servants whispered more. She's not well. Wedding nerves. She should see the doctor. I did see the doctor. Dr. Rashid, our family physician, educated at Harvard, paid extremely well to keep our secrets. He checked my vitals, ran blood tests, asked careful questions. Are you sleeping, Your Highness? No. Are you experiencing anxiety? Yes. On a scale of 1 to 10. 11, I said flatly. He prescribed pills. 3 different kinds. Something for anxiety. Something for sleep. Something for depression. All in discreet bottles with no labels, because royalty doesn't have mental health issues, we have stress and adjustments. I took them. They made everything foggy. Distant. Like I was watching my life happen to someone else. Maybe that was better. Maybe numbness was better than this constant, screaming agony. But the pills didn't help me sleep. Because every time I closed my eyes, I saw Prince Khalid's face. I'd met him once, briefly, at a state dinner 2 years ago. He was tall, broad, with a beard dyed black to hide the gray and eyes that looked at women like they were property. He'd shaken my father's hand, ignored mine completely, and talked about oil prices and political alliances while I stood there in silence, invisible. Now I was going to be his wife. His 4th wife. His property. I'd heard stories. Whispers from servants who had cousins who had friends who'd worked in his palace. Stories about locked rooms. About women who stopped appearing in public. About screams that no one acknowledged, but stories didn't matter to my father. Alliance mattered. Power mattered. And Prince Khalid had both. It was day 38 before the wedding when I found it. I was in my mother's chambers. She'd sent me to retrieve a necklace from her jewelry room, an emerald set she wanted to show the wedding planner, because apparently even my jewelry on my wedding day needed to be coordinated with the overall theme. Her chambers were on the 4th floor, in the south wing, the highest point of the palace, with panoramic views of the Gulf. Her bedroom alone was 2,000 square feet. Her closet was larger than most apartments. Her jewelry room was a vault. I entered the code, her birthday, because my mother wasn't creative about security, and the heavy door clicked open. Climate controlled. Humidity monitored. Security cameras in every corner. Millions of dollars of jewelry organized in velvet-lined drawers. I found the emerald set easily. But as I reached for it, I knocked over a small wooden box on the shelf above. It fell. Hit the marble floor. The lid popped open. And something tumbled out. A small book. Leather-bound. Worn. I froze. No. It couldn't be. I picked it up with shaking hands. Opened it. Holy Bible. Not the same one my father had burned. This one was older. The pages were yellowed, dog-eared, marked with notes in the margins. In my mother's handwriting. My mother had a Bible. My mother, Her Royal Highness, the Queen, the woman who'd lectured me about duty and faith and obedience, had a Bible hidden in her jewelry vault. I stood there in that climate-controlled room worth millions, holding evidence that my mother was exactly what she'd condemned me for being, a seeker. A questioner. A woman desperate enough to risk everything for truth. How long had she had this? Years? Decades? Since before she married my father? Since before I was born? The notes in the margins were in Arabic. Short phrases. Questions. Prayers. Is this real? Can I believe this? Please let this be true. My mother had been where I was. Maybe she still was. But she'd chosen differently. She'd chosen duty over truth. She'd chosen the crown over the cross. She'd chosen survival over salvation. And she'd been living with that choice for decades. I thought about her empty eyes. Her perfect makeup. Her flawless clothes. Her dead smile. This is what compromise looked like. This is what playing the part did to you over 20, 30 years. It hollowed you out. Made you beautiful and empty. A gorgeous corpse walking through a palace, going through motions, performing rituals, pretending everything was fine while you slowly died inside. I could see my future in her margins. In her hidden Bible. In her desperate questions written decades ago and never answered, because she'd never had the courage to really ask. To really seek. To really risk. I closed the book. Held it to my chest. And I made a decision. I was not going to become my mother. I slipped the Bible into my abaya. The emerald necklace in my other hand. Walked out of the vault. Closed it behind me. Walked through her chambers, past her king-sized bed, past her sitting area, past photos of her and my father at state events, smiling their dead smiles. I walked back to my own chambers. Past guards. Past servants. Past my sisters arguing about something trivial in the hallway. No one noticed the rectangular shape hidden beneath my abaya. No one ever noticed anything. I locked my door. All 3 locks. Checked for cameras, I'd learned where they were positioned. My bathroom had a blind spot. I went inside. Locked that door too. Sat on the heated marble floor, back against the wall, and opened my mother's Bible. I read for 6 hours straight. I started where I'd left off before, the Gospel of John. But this time, I kept going. I read about Jesus calling his disciples. About him performing miracles. About him touching untouchables, healing the sick, forgiving the broken. I read about him standing up to religious leaders who cared more about rules than people. About him calling them hypocrites. Whitewashed tombs. Clean on the outside, dead on the inside. I thought about my father. About his perfect prayers. His meticulous rituals. His obsession with image and reputation while threatening to murder his own daughter. Whitewashed tombs. I read about Jesus eating with prostitutes and tax collectors. About him touching a woman who'd been bleeding for 12 years, unclean, untouchable, invisible. About him seeing her. Healing her. Calling her daughter. Daughter. Not your highness. Not princess. Just daughter. I read about him being betrayed by someone close to him. Arrested. Beaten. Mocked. Crucified. About him hanging on a cross, bleeding, dying, and still saying, "Father, forgive them. Forgive them." After everything they'd done to him. After the betrayal, the torture, the humiliation. Forgive them. I'd been raised to believe in justice. In punishment. In revenge. An eye for an eye. Blood for blood. Honor restored through violence. But this man, this God-man, chose forgiveness. And then I read about the resurrection. About the tomb being empty. About Jesus appearing to his disciples, showing them his scars, eating fish with them to prove he was real. About him ascending to heaven, promising to return. I sat on that bathroom floor as the sun set outside, as the call to prayer echoed through the palace, as the evening meal was served and cleared and my absence was noted but not questioned. Princesses were allowed their moods. And I felt something shift inside me. Not dramatically. Not like lightning or earthquakes or burning bushes. Just a crack. A tiny fissure in the wall I'd built around my heart. A small opening where light could get in. What if this is true? Not just true like a historical fact. True like the truth. The answer to every question I'd been asking. The solution to every emptiness I'd been feeling. What if Jesus wasn't just a prophet? What if he was exactly who he claimed to be? God in human form. The bridge between heaven and earth. The way, the truth, the life. What if everything I'd been taught was wrong? What if everything I'd been searching for was right here, in this book, in this person, in this impossible story of God loving the world so much he'd die for it? My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. This was dangerous. This was treason, not just political, but spiritual. To even consider this was to risk everything. But hadn't I already lost everything? I was going to marry Prince Khalid in 38 days. I was going to spend the rest of my life locked in another palace, abused by another man, dying slowly in another golden cage. What did I have to lose? I started reading every night. After the servants left. After the palace quieted. After everyone assumed I was sleeping, drugged by Dr. Rashid's pills, which I'd stopped taking because I needed to be awake, alert, alive. I'd lock my doors. Go to the bathroom blind spot. Pull out the Bible. And read by the light of my phone. I read the Gospel of Matthew. of Mark, of Luke. I read the same stories from different perspectives, and somehow that made them more real. More believable. These weren't fairy tales polished by time. These were eyewitness accounts, messy, specific, human. I read about Jesus getting tired. Jesus getting hungry. Jesus weeping at his friend's grave. God experiencing human suffering. God understanding what it felt like to be betrayed, abandoned, alone. He knew. He understood. I read the Psalms, David's raw, honest prayers. How long, O Lord? Will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? Finally, someone asking the questions I'd been asking. Finally, someone saying what I'd been feeling. I read Romans, Ephesians, Philippians, Paul's letters to early Christians. And one verse stopped me cold. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast. Not of works. Not by praying 5 times a day. Not by fasting during Ramadan. Not by performing rituals perfectly. Not by earning it, deserving it, being good enough for it. A gift. Grace. I'd never heard that word in Arabic. Not really. Rahma, mercy. But mercy implied you deserved punishment and were being spared. Grace was different. Grace was receiving something you could never earn, never deserve, never achieve on your own. I thought about my life. About the thousands of prayers I'd recited. The fasts. The rituals. The obedience. All of it trying to be good enough. Trying to earn Allah's approval. Trying to deserve paradise. And never succeeding. Never feeling close. Never feeling anything. But this said it was a gift. Already given. Already finished. Jesus had done the work on the cross. All I had to do was receive it. Could it really be that simple? It felt too easy. Too good. There had to be a catch. There had to be more required. More rules. More performance. More proof. But the book kept saying the same thing, grace. Gift. Believe. Receive. I read John 3 verse 16 again, the verse that had started everything. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. Whoever. Not just Jews. Not just Christians. Not just good people or holy people or people who'd earned it. Whoever. A Saudi princess. A confused, desperate, broken woman sitting on a bathroom floor in a palace, reading a forbidden book and daring to hope there might be something more. Whoever. Me. On day 26 before the wedding, I did something reckless. I prayed. But not to Allah. Not in Arabic. Not facing Mecca. I prayed to Jesus. It was 3 a.m. I was in my chambers, the bathroom blind spot had become my sanctuary. I knelt on the heated marble floor, and I whispered. Jesus. I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if this is real. I don't know if I'm making a terrible mistake. But I'm desperate. I'm drowning. I'm being forced into a marriage that will destroy me, and I don't know what to do. If you're real, if you're really who this book says you are, I need you. I need you now. Please. Show me. Give me a sign. Help me know this is true. I waited. The bathroom was silent. Just the hum of the ventilation system. The distant sound of a guard's footsteps in the hallway. The beating of my own terrified heart. Nothing happened. No burning bush. No voice from heaven. No dramatic miracle. I almost laughed. Almost. What was I expecting? I'd spent 23 years praying to Allah and hearing nothing. Why would Jesus be any different? Why would some foreign god care about a Muslim girl in a Gulf palace? I stood up. Brushed off my nightgown, silk, of course, $800. Unlocked the bathroom door. Walked back to my bed. I was about to lie down when I saw it. On my nightstand. Where it hadn't been before. A piece of paper. Folded. Simple. My heart stopped. I picked it up with shaking hands. Unfolded it. It was a note. In English. In handwriting I didn't recognize. I am with you. I have always been with you. Do not be afraid. Trust me. J. Jesus? I spun around. Looked at my locked doors. Locked windows. No one could have entered. No one could have left. The security in the palace was military grade. Motion sensors. Cameras. Guards. No one could have put this note here. No one human. I read it again. And again. And again. I am with you. My legs gave out. I sat on the edge of my bed, the $50,000 bed with its perfect mattress and silk sheets, and I wept. Not sad tears. Not desperate tears. Relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. He was real. Jesus was real. And he'd heard me. He'd answered. He was with me. I pressed the note to my chest and cried until the call to far prayer echoed through the palace, until the sun started rising over the gulf, until the servants knocked softly on my door to begin another day of wedding preparations. But everything had changed. I had 26 days until my wedding. And I'd just met the only groom I'd ever need. I kept that note in my pocket for 3 days. I'd reach in and touch it, just to make sure it was real. That I hadn't imagined it. That Jesus had actually, impossibly, miraculously left me a message in my locked bedroom in a palace in one of the most restricted countries on earth. I am with you. 4 words. They changed everything. The wedding preparations continued around me, dress fittings, menu tastings, guest list reviews. I smiled. I nodded. I played the part. But inside, I was different. Something had shifted. Something fundamental had cracked open, and light was pouring in. I kept reading the Bible every night. But now it wasn't just words on a page. It was personal. It was a conversation. It was Jesus speaking directly to me. When I read, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest," I heard his voice in my mind, gentle, strong, certain. Calling me. Inviting me. When I read, "I am the way, the truth, and the life," I felt it in my chest, not just intellectually, but spiritually. A knowing that went deeper than logic or reason. This was truth. The truth. Everything I'd been searching for. But I was terrified. Because knowing the truth meant I had to make a choice. And that choice would cost me everything. 23 days before the wedding, I made the choice. It was 3 a.m. again. I'd started living for these hours, when the palace slept, when I could be alone with Jesus, when I could be honest in a way I'd never been allowed to be. I knelt in my bathroom sanctuary. The marble was cold beneath my knees. I held the Bible in my hands, my mother's Bible, with her desperate questions in the margins. But I wasn't going to be like my mother. I wasn't going to choose comfort over courage. I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life pretending, performing, dying slowly in a golden cage. I was going to choose Jesus. No matter what it cost. Jesus, I whispered into the silence. I don't have eloquent words. I don't know how to do this right. But I believe you're real. I believe you died for me. I believe you rose from the dead. And I want to belong to you. Not to my family. Not to Prince Khalid. Not to this kingdom. To you. My voice broke. Tears streamed down my face. I'm so scared. I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm choosing you. Right now. Forever. I'm yours. I closed my eyes. Waited. Hoped. And then the room changed. It wasn't gradual. It wasn't subtle. One moment I was alone in my bathroom, and the next moment the air was different. Thick. Warm. Electric. Like the atmosphere before lightning strikes, but without the danger. With only presence. My eyes snapped open. And he was there. Jesus. Standing in my bathroom. In my palace. In the blind spot of the security cameras. In the most impossible place imaginable. He was real. Solid. Physical. Not a ghost. Not a vision. Real. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Couldn't think. He was. I don't even know how to describe him. He wore simple clothes, not royal robes, not designer fabric, just a plain tunic and cloak, the kind you'd see in history books about ancient times. But he was more regal than any king I'd ever seen. More royal than my father with all his golden titles and power. It was in his bearing. His presence. The way he stood, completely at ease, completely in control, completely himself. He didn't need a crown to be a king. He just was. His face, I'd seen paintings, images, movies. None of them came close. He was Middle Eastern, of course he was born in Bethlehem. Dark hair. Brown skin. Strong features. But his eyes. His eyes held everything. Eternity. Love. Power. sorrow, joy. All of it at once. When he looked at me, and he was looking at me, directly at me, I felt completely seen. Every secret. Every wound. Every desperate prayer. Every moment of my life, he'd witnessed it all. And he wasn't disappointed. He wasn't angry. He was gentle. Loving. Present. Ameerah, he said. Just my name. Not your highness. Not princess. Not even daughter yet, though that would come later. Just Ameerah. And the way he said it, like he'd been saying it my whole life. Like he'd been calling me and I was finally hearing. Like I was the only person in the world and he'd crossed dimensions to be here with me in this moment. I broke. I'd been holding everything together for so long. The fear. The despair. The loneliness. The crushing weight of duty and expectations and a future that felt like death. I'd been performing, pretending, surviving. But I couldn't perform for him. Couldn't pretend. Couldn't survive. I collapsed. Literally. My body gave out and I fell forward, face first onto the marble floor, sobbing. Ugly crying. The kind of crying that shakes your whole body, that empties you out, that strips away every pretense. I'm sorry, I gasped between sobs. I'm sorry. I've wasted so much time. I've been so blind. Ameerah. His voice again. Closer now. I felt him kneel beside me. Felt his hand on my shoulder, warm, solid, real. Look at me. I couldn't. I was too ashamed. Too broken. Too much of a mess. Ameerah, look at me. Slowly, I lifted my head. Tears blurred my vision. Mascara, I'd been wearing makeup even to bed, because I'd been too depressed to remove it, streaked my face. I was in a silk nightgown worth hundreds of dollars and I'd never felt more naked, more exposed, more utterly seen. He smiled at me. Jesus smiled at me. And it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever witnessed. Warm. Real. Full of affection and delight and joy, actual joy. He wasn't just tolerating me. He wasn't just accepting me out of obligation. He was happy to be here. With me. Happy I'd finally called him. I've been waiting for you, he said softly. Waiting? My voice was hoarse. How long? Your whole life. He tilted his head slightly. I've been calling you since before you were born. I've been with you in every moment, every prayer you thought went unanswered, every tear you cried alone, every time you felt trapped and desperate and unseen. I saw you, Ameerah. I've always seen you. But I didn't see you, I whispered. I was praying to the wrong. You were praying to the only one who could hear you. Your heart was seeking truth, and I am truth. Every sincere prayer reached me, even when you called me by a different name. I stared at him. The note, that was you? He smiled again. Did you doubt? I didn't know if I was going crazy. You're not crazy. You're awake. Finally awake. He stood up, offered me his hand. I took it, his hand was scarred. I could see the mark in the center of his palm, where a nail had been driven through. Where he'd been crucified. For me. For the world. For everyone. He pulled me to my feet effortlessly. Steadied me when I swayed. I'm going to ask you something, he said, looking into my eyes. And I need you to answer honestly. Do you believe I am who I say I am? Yes, I said immediately. No hesitation. Yes. I believe you're the Son of God. I believe you died for my sins. I believe you rose from the dead. I believe, my voice broke again. I believe you're the only hope I have. He nodded slowly. Then you need to understand what comes next. Following me will cost you everything. Your family will reject you. Your country will hunt you. You'll lose your title, your inheritance, your home. You'll be called a traitor. An apostate. They'll try to kill you. I already knew this. I'd known it from the moment I read John 3 verse 16. But hearing him say it, hearing Jesus himself warn me about the cost, made it real in a way nothing else had. I know, I whispered. And you're still choosing me? I looked around my bathroom. Heated marble floors. Gold fixtures. Designer everything. This bathroom alone was worth more than most people's homes. Beyond this door was a palace with 347 rooms. Beyond that palace was a life of luxury, comfort, security, as long as I obeyed. As long as I bowed. As long as I played the part. A life of slow death in a beautiful cage. Or I could choose him. Choose freedom. Choose life, real life, abundant life, eternal life. Even if it cost me everything else. I looked back at Jesus. At his scarred hands. At his eyes that held galaxies and grace. I'd rather have nothing with you than everything without you, I said. And I meant it. For the first time in my life, I meant something with my whole heart. His expression changed. Softened. He reached out and touched my face, his hand gentle, thumb wiping away tears I didn't know I was still crying. My brave daughter, he said quietly. You have no idea what you just gained. Daughter. He called me daughter. Not servant. Not follower. Not subject. Daughter. I'd been a princess my whole life, royalty by birth, with titles and privileges and wealth. But I'd never felt loved. Never felt chosen. Never felt like I belonged. But in that moment, standing in my bathroom with Jesus, I felt more royal than I ever had sitting next to my father on a throne. Because I wasn't just a princess of an earthly kingdom that would eventually crumble. I was a daughter of the King of Kings. An heir to an eternal kingdom. Royalty by grace, not by blood. Chosen. Loved. Home. What do I do now? I asked. The wedding is in 23 days. My father. I will guide you, Jesus said. Step by step. Day by day. You won't see the whole plan, Ameerah. You'll have to trust me. Walk by faith, not by sight. Can you do that? Could I? Could I trust someone I'd just met, even if that someone was God himself, with a future I couldn't see? But what was the alternative? Trust my father, who'd signed my death warrant? Trust Prince Khalid, who'd destroy me? Trust myself, who'd been drowning for 23 years? I'll try, I said. I want to trust you. Help me trust you. That's all I need, he said. Your willing heart. I'll do the rest. He stepped back. The air began to shift again, not leaving suddenly, but transitioning. Like he was about to go, but his presence would remain. Wait, I said quickly. Will I see you again? You'll see me every time you read my word. You'll feel me every time you pray. You'll know me more deeply every day you follow me. He paused. But yes, Ameerah. When you need me most, I'll be there. I promise. I don't want you to go, I whispered. Tears again. I couldn't stop crying. I'm not going anywhere. He touched his chest, then pointed to mine. I live here now. In you. We're not separate anymore. Where you go, I go. You're never alone again. And then he was gone. Not dramatically. Not with lightning or clouds or theatrics. Just, gone. The room returned to normal. The air thinned. The presence, that overwhelming, beautiful, undeniable presence, faded. But he was right. He wasn't really gone. I could still feel him. Not physically. But spiritually. Like a warmth in my chest. A peace I'd never known. A certainty that even though I couldn't see him, he was there. I was not alone. I spent the rest of that night on my bathroom floor, praying. But not like before. Not empty rituals. Not desperate begging into void. Conversation. With a God who listened. Who answered. Who cared. I talked to him about everything. My fears. My family. The wedding. Prince Khalid. My mother. The future I couldn't see. And he spoke back. Not audibly, I didn't hear a voice. But I felt him. In my spirit. Impressions. Thoughts that weren't mine. Peace that didn't make logical sense. Trust me. I have a plan. You're mine now. No one can take you from me. When the call to far prayer echoed through the palace at 5:30 a.m., I didn't feel the usual dread. I felt different. Awake. Alive. Changed. I'd been born into royalty 23 years ago. But I'd been born again tonight. Into a kingdom that would never end. Into a family that would never abandon me. Into a love that would never fail. I washed my face. Fixed my makeup. Looked at myself in the mirror. Same face. Same body. Same life, for now. But different eyes. They weren't empty anymore. They weren't dead. They were awake. And they were ready for whatever came next. Because I wasn't facing it alone anymore. Jesus was with me. Jesus was in me. And if God was for me, who could be against me? 23 days until my wedding. But I'd already married the only groom I'd ever need. The next 3 weeks were the strangest of my life. On the outside, nothing changed. I attended wedding preparations. I smiled for photographers. I nodded when the event planner showed me centerpiece options, gold or crystal? Both, apparently. Everything had to be extravagant, excessive, a display of wealth that would be talked about for years. But on the inside, I was a completely different person. I read the Bible every night, devouring it like someone starving. And I was starving. Starving for truth. For life. For Jesus. The words weren't just text anymore. They were alive, breathing, speaking directly to my situation. Do not fear, for I am with you, do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. I'd read that verse in Isaiah and felt Jesus whisper in my spirit, this is for you, Ameerah. Right now. I will uphold you. I prayed constantly. Not formal prayers. Conversations. While I was being fitted for the wedding dress, I'd talked to Jesus in my mind. This is insane. I'm being fitted for a wedding to one man while I belong to you. And I'd feel him respond, not with words, but with peace. With presence. With the assurance that he had a plan. I just didn't know what it was. My family noticed the change. You seem calmer, my youngest sister said one afternoon. We were reviewing seating charts, a nightmare of protocol and politics, making sure the right royals sat at the right tables. Do I? I asked carefully. Yeah. I thought you'd be more stressed. But you seem almost peaceful? She looked confused. Are you actually happy about marrying Prince Khalid? Happy? No. Terrified? Yes. But also trusting. Believing. Waiting for Jesus to do what he'd promised, to guide me, to protect me, to be with me. I'm at peace, I said truthfully. For the first time in my life. She didn't understand. How could she? She was still asleep. Still trapped. Still bowing to the wrong kingdom. But I'd woken up. And I couldn't go back to sleep. My father summoned me again on day 7 before the wedding. Same study. Same mahogany desk. Same gold dagger. Same burgundy walls. But I wasn't the same girl who'd sat here 3 months ago, trembling and powerless. I walked in with my head high. Not in arrogance. In confidence. Because I knew who I belonged to now. And it wasn't him. Sit, he said. Not as soft this time. Direct. Saturday he studied me for a long moment. His eyes, black as oil, searched my face. You're different. Am I? Don't play games with me, Ameerah. I've known you for 23 years. You're different. Calmer. Almost defiant. Defiant. Interesting word choice. I'm just accepting my reality, Baba. Are you? He leaned forward. Because your reality is this, in 7 days, you will marry Prince Khalid. You will be a good wife. An obedient wife. You will produce heirs. You will uphold this family's reputation. And you will forget whatever Western nonsense filled your head from that book. That book. He couldn't even say it. Couldn't say Bible. As if not naming it would make it less powerful. Too late. It had already changed everything. I understand, I said quietly. Do you? He stood up, walked around the desk, leaned against it directly in front of me. Towering. Intimidating. King posture. Because I need to be very clear, Ameerah. Prince Khalid is not a patient man. He's agreed to marry you as a favor to me. If you embarrass him, if you embarrass this family, there will be consequences. What kind of consequences? His hand drifted to the gold dagger on the desk. Touched it. A casual gesture. A deliberate message. The kind that are permanent. He was threatening to kill me. Again. His own daughter. Because I might embarrass him. And I felt nothing. No fear. No panic. Just a strange, supernatural calm. Because I knew something he didn't. I wasn't alone in this room. Jesus was here. In me. With me. And no weapon formed against me would prosper. I won't embarrass you, Baba, I said. And it was true. What I was about to do had nothing to do with him. It had everything to do with Jesus. He studied me again. Suspicious. But he nodded. Good. You're dismissed. I stood. Walked to the door. Stopped. Baba? What? I turned around. Looked at him, this powerful man, this king, this father who'd controlled every aspect of my life. I forgive you, I said quietly. He blinked. What? For everything. For controlling me. For threatening me. For selling me to Prince Khalid. I forgive you. His face darkened. I don't need your forgiveness. I've done nothing wrong. I'm protecting this family. I know you believe that. And I forgive you anyway. I left before he could respond. Walked down that long hallway, 200 meters, 154 steps, with tears streaming down my face. Not sad tears. Relieved tears. Because forgiveness wasn't for him. It was for me. It was releasing the bitterness, the anger, the hurt. It was choosing freedom over chains. It was becoming more like Jesus, who'd forgiven the people who crucified him. I was learning what it meant to follow him. And it was costing me everything. But I was gaining so much more. The wedding day arrived. I woke up at 4 a.m. Couldn't sleep. My room was full of servants, makeup artists, hairstylists, dressers. They'd been arriving since 3 a.m. to begin preparations. The wedding was at 6 p.m. It would take 14 hours to make me perfect. They worked in silence mostly. Professional. Efficient. My face was scrubbed, exfoliated, moisturized, primed. Foundation. Contouring. Highlighting. My face stopped being my face and became a work of art. Beautiful. Flawless. Dead. My hair was washed, dried, curled, pinned, adorned with diamonds, real diamonds, woven into my hair, because excess was the point. The dress arrived at noon. It had taken 6 months to make. Designed by a famous Lebanese couturier. 50 pounds of silk, lace, crystals, and pearls. It cost $500,000. For one dress. For one day. For one lie. They helped me into it. Laced up the back, so tight I could barely breathe. Adjusted the train, 15 feet long. Placed the veil, hand-embroidered lace from Belgium, another $100,000. I looked in the mirror. The most beautiful bride I'd ever seen stared back. Perfect makeup. Perfect hair. Perfect dress. Empty eyes. No. Not empty. Not anymore. Scared. But not empty. Because Jesus was with me. I could feel him. That warmth in my chest. That presence that hadn't left since he'd appeared in my bathroom 3 weeks ago. Trust me, I felt him whisper in my spirit. Just trust me. I do, I whispered back. I trust you. The makeup artist looked at me. Did you say something, Your Highness? Just praying, I said. She smiled. Nodded. Went back to work. She thought I was praying to Allah. Asking for a good marriage. Blessing on this union. I was praying to Jesus. Asking for courage. Strength. A miracle. The wedding was at the palace. Our palace, because Prince Khalid's palace wasn't large enough for a guest list of 800 people. 800. Royalty from across the Gulf. Dignitaries. Politicians. Business magnates. All here to witness the union of two powerful families. To seal alliances. To celebrate wealth and power and tradition. The ceremony was in the Grand Majlis, the largest room in the palace. 10,000 square feet. 40-foot ceilings. Crystal chandeliers that cost more than most homes. Gold leaf on every surface. Marble floors polished to mirrors. I waited in an antechamber. My father beside me. My mother adjusting my veil. My sisters fussing over the train. You look beautiful, Habibti, my mother whispered. But her eyes were sad. Because she knew. She knew what this marriage was. What I was being forced into. She'd lived it herself. Thank you, Ummi, I said quietly. She touched my cheek. Be strong, she said. So quietly only I could hear. Survive. Survive. That's what she'd done. Survived. Compromised. Chosen the cage over freedom. The crown over the cross. But I wasn't going to survive. I was going to live. Or die trying. The music started. Traditional. Formal. The signal. My father offered his arm. Ready? No. I wasn't ready. Every cell in my body was screaming to run. To flee. To escape. But Jesus had said to trust him. To walk by faith. To wait for him to guide me. So I took my father's arm. Ready. The doors opened. The Grand Majlis stretched before me. 800 people standing. Watching. Judging. Witnessing. And at the end of the aisle, on a raised platform, stood Prince Khalid. 57 years old. Broad. Bearded. Eyes like a predator. He wasn't smiling. He was assessing. Claiming. Owning. My stomach turned. But I walked. One step. Another. The train dragged behind me, silk and pearls and lies. My father's arm was steady. He nodded to guests as we passed. Performing. Always performing. I kept my eyes forward. On Prince Khalid. On my future. On the death of everything I'd hoped for. No. Not death. Because Jesus was with me. I could feel him walking beside me, invisible but present. Holding me up when my legs wanted to give out. Trust me, I felt him whisper. Just a little longer. We reached the platform. My father handed me to Prince Khalid, literally, like property changing hands. Prince Khalid took my hand. His grip was tight. Possessive. The Imam began speaking. Formal Arabic. Quranic verses about marriage and obedience and duty. Words that sounded holy but felt hollow. I wasn't listening. I was praying. Jesus, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what your plan is. But I trust you. I choose you. No matter what happens next, I'm yours. Only yours. Forever yours. The Imam asked Prince Khalid if he accepted me as his wife. Took him as his wife. All the formal language. I do, Prince Khalid said. His voice was deep. Cold. Final. Then the Imam turned to me. Ameerah bint, he recited my full name, my lineage, my titles. Do you accept Prince Khalid as your husband, to honor and obey, for all your days? This was it. The moment. Say yes, and the cage locked forever. Say no, and... I didn't know what would happen if I said no. But Jesus had told me to trust him. The room was silent. 800 people waiting. Watching. I opened my mouth. No. The word echoed through the silent majlis like a gunshot. Gasps. Whispers. Confusion. Prince Khalid's grip on my hand tightened painfully. What did you say? He hissed. I pulled my hand away. Turned to face the crowd. 800 faces. Shocked. Appalled. Witnessing the unthinkable. I can't marry him, I said. My voice shook but held. I can't marry anyone. Because I already belong to someone else. My father stood up from his seat in the front row. His face was red. Furious. Ameerah, sit down. Now. I belong to Jesus Christ, I said louder. Clearer. He is my Lord. My Savior. My King. And I cannot marry anyone else because I am his. The majlis erupted. Shouting. Chaos. My sister screamed. My mother covered her face. The Imam backed away like I was contaminated. And Prince Khalid lunged at me. He grabbed my arm, hard enough to bruise. Yanked me toward him. You dare. Let her go. The voice came from nowhere. From everywhere. From the air itself. Everyone froze. And then the room changed. The temperature dropped. No, rose. No, both. The air became thick, heavy, charged. Like the atmosphere before lightning strikes. And light began to fill the room. Not from the chandeliers. From nowhere. From everywhere. Bright but not blinding. Warm but not burning. Prince Khalid released my arm. Stumbled backward. His eyes wide with fear. Because Jesus was appearing. Not just to me this time. To everyone. He materialized at the front of the majlis, solid, real, undeniable. Same simple clothes. Same regal bearing. Same eyes that held everything. 800 people saw him. 800 Muslims. Royals. Dignitaries. Politicians. They saw Jesus. Some fell to their knees immediately. Some screamed. Some tried to run but couldn't move, frozen in place by the sheer power of his presence. My father stood rooted to his spot, his face pale as death. Jesus looked at me. Smiled gently. Well done, my beloved daughter. Well done. Then he turned to the crowd. His voice filled the majlis, not loud, but authoritative. Undeniable. The voice of God himself. You have gathered here to witness a wedding. But you will witness something far greater. You will witness the truth you've spent your lives denying. He raised his hands. The scars were visible, nail marks from the crucifixion. Proof. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. You have called me prophet. But I am more. I am the Son of God. I am God in flesh. I died for your sins. I rose from the grave. I am alive. And I am calling you, all of you, to turn from your lies and come to me. The Imam tried to speak. You're just a prophet. Muhammad, peace be upon him. Muhammad is dead, Jesus said calmly. His body remains in the earth. But I am alive. I conquered death. And I offer you the same victory, eternal life, not earned by works, but received by faith in me. He looked at my father. You have ruled with power and fear. But your kingdom will crumble. You have wealth beyond measure, but you will die and face judgment. And on that day, your gold will mean nothing. Your titles will mean nothing. Only one question will matter: what did you do with me? My father's mouth opened. Closed. No words came out. Jesus turned to Prince Khalid. You have taken 4 wives. Controlled them. Abused them. Silenced them. You will not have a 5th. Ameerah belongs to me. Touch her again, and you will answer to the King of Kings. Prince Khalid fell to his knees. Actually trembling. Then Jesus turned to the crowd. You have witnessed the impossible today. You cannot deny what your eyes have seen. You have a choice to make. Will you continue in darkness? Or will you come into the light? He extended his hands, scarred, nail-marked, proof of his sacrifice. Come to me. And people came. Not all of them. Maybe a third. But in a room full of Muslims, in a palace in one of the most restricted countries in the world, approximately 250 people fell to their knees and cried out to Jesus. Including my youngest sister. Including my mother. My mother, Her Highness, the Queen, fell to her knees, weeping, and whispered, Jesus, forgive me. Forgive me for choosing fear over you. Forgive me for wasting so many years. Save me. I'm yours. I watched it happen. Watched centuries of tradition shatter in minutes. Watched the impossible unfold before my eyes. And then Jesus turned back to me. He walked up the platform steps. Stood before me in my $500,000 dress and my diamond-woven hair and my perfectly made-up face. Are you ready to leave this place? He asked gently. Yes, I whispered. But how? The guards. The security. My father. Do you trust me? Yes. Then take my hand. I did. I put my hand in his scarred, nail-marked, beautiful hand. And we walked out. Past Prince Khalid kneeling on the floor. Past my father frozen in shock. Past the Imam. Past the 800 guests, some worshipping, some weeping, some paralyzed with fear. We walked through the majlis. Down the long hallway. Past the portrait gallery of my ancestors. Past the guards who couldn't stop us. Out the front doors of the palace. Into the courtyard. Into the night air. And waiting at the gates was a car. A simple car. And a woman I'd never seen before, Pakistani, middle-aged, kind eyes, standing beside it. This is Miriam, Jesus said. She will take you somewhere safe. You're not coming? I asked, panic rising. I'm always with you, he said, touching my chest where my heart was. But Miriam will help you with the practical things. Trust her. She's my servant. She's risked her life to help you. He looked at me, really looked at me. You've lost a palace, Ameerah. But you've gained a kingdom. You've lost earthly royalty. But you've become true royalty, a daughter of the Most High God. Do you regret it? I thought about my sisters. My mother who'd finally chosen Jesus. The 250 people who'd just surrendered their lives to Christ. The price I'd paid. The price they would pay. No, I said. I don't regret it. I'd do it again. 1,000 times. He smiled. Then go. Live. Be free. And tell the world what I've done for you. He kissed my forehead, gentle, fatherly, eternal. And then he was gone. But not really gone. Never really gone. Because he lived in me now. Miriam opened the car door. We need to go, Your Highness. Quickly. Not Your Highness anymore, I said, gathering up my ridiculous 15-foot train. Just Ameerah. She smiled. Ameerah. Beautiful name. It means princess. I know, I said, climbing into the car. And I finally understand what it really means to be one. She drove. Fast. Out of the palace gates. Through the city. Toward the border. Toward freedom. Toward a future I couldn't see but no longer feared. Because Jesus was with me. And I'd just witnessed the most powerful kingdom on earth bow before the King of Kings. The wedding dress made escape complicated. We'd been driving for 20 minutes when Miriam glanced in the rearview mirror and laughed, actually laughed. Sister, we need to do something about that dress. I looked down. 50 pounds of silk and crystals. A 15-foot train stuffed in the back seat. Diamonds still woven in my hair. I looked like a bride who'd been kidnapped, which, technically, I had been. Kidnapped by Jesus. We have clothes for you, Miriam said, nodding toward a bag on the floor. We'll stop soon. Change. Then keep moving. Who's we? I asked. The church, she said simply. Underground believers. We've been praying for you for months, Ameerah. Since the first rumor started that a princess was reading a Bible. We didn't know if it was true. But we prayed. And Jesus told us to prepare. To be ready. That he was going to do something miraculous. Months. They'd been praying for me for months. People I'd never met. Believers I didn't know existed. I wasn't alone. I'd never been alone. How did you know to come tonight? I asked. She smiled, a knowing smile. Jesus told me. 3 days ago. He appeared in my room while I was praying. Told me to be at the palace gates tonight at exactly 8:47 p.m. Told me you'd need help. Told me to take you to the safe house. 8:47 p.m. I looked at the car's clock. 8:52 p.m. Perfect timing. Of course it was. Where are we going? Better you don't know yet. If they catch us. She trailed off. We both knew what would happen if they caught us. My phone buzzed. I'd forgotten I still had it in the hidden pocket of my dress. Even wedding dresses designed for royalty had practical features. 17 missed calls. All from my father's private number. 23 text messages. I opened them. Father, where are you? Father, return immediately. Father, this is not a request. Father, you have embarrassed this family beyond repair. Father, there will be consequences. Father, Ameerah, I'm warning you. Father, you are making a grave mistake. And then the last one, sent 2 minutes ago. Father, you are dead to me. You are dead to this family. You are dead to this kingdom. If you ever return, you will be dead in reality. I have signed the order. You are now a fugitive and an apostate. May Allah have mercy on your soul, because I will not. I stared at the screen. Read it again. And again. My father had just disowned me. Declared me an apostate, the worst crime in our world. Signed my death warrant for real this time. I should have felt something. Terror. Grief. Loss. Instead, I felt free. The last chain had broken. I wasn't a princess anymore. I wasn't a daughter of that house anymore. I had no obligation to that kingdom, that family, that life. I was just Ameerah. Follower of Jesus. Daughter of the Most High God. Free. They've disowned me, I said quietly. My father's issued a death warrant. Miriam's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Then we moved faster. She pulled off the highway onto a dirt road. Drove for 5 minutes into what looked like agricultural land, date palm farms, empty at night. Pulled behind a small building, looked like a storage shed. Change quickly, she said, handing me the bag. We have 10 minutes before the tracking begins. Tracking? Your phone. Your jewelry. Probably trackers sewn into that dress. Royalty is always tracked. I looked down at the dress. At the diamonds in my hair. At the phone in my hand. Everything I owned was a leash. I got out of the car. Miriam stood guard while I stripped off the wedding dress right there in the dirt behind a shed. 50 pounds of silk falling into the dust. I pulled off the diamond hairpins, dropped them on top of the dress. Removed the pearl earrings, the emerald necklace, the gold bangles my mother had given me that morning. A pile of wealth worth over $1 million, lying in the dirt like garbage. And it felt good. I put on the clothes from the bag. Simple. Modest. Black abaya, cheap fabric, nothing designer. Black hijab. Flat shoes. The kind of clothes a housemaid would wear. Invisible clothes. Perfect. I looked at my phone. 17 missed calls had become 32. My father was persistent. I powered it off. Removed the SIM card. Threw both pieces on top of the pile of jewelry and silk. Your old life, Miriam said, looking at the pile. Are you ready to leave it? I looked at that $1 million dress. At the diamonds glittering in the moonlight. At the phone that connected me to everyone I'd ever known. And I walked away. More than ready, I said. We got back in the car. Miriam pulled out a different phone, a burner. Handed it to me. Your new phone. Only a few numbers programmed. Me. The safe house. The pastor. That's it. Pastor. I'd never met a pastor. Didn't know what that word meant in practice. In my world, we had imams. Religious police. Enforcers. But apparently, in Jesus's world, we had pastors. Shepherds. Guides. I was learning a whole new language. We drove for 3 more hours. Miriam took back roads, avoiding checkpoints, cameras, main highways. She knew the routes. Had done this before. How many people have you helped escape? I asked. You're the 17th, she said quietly. 17 believers who needed to flee. 2 Saudis. 3 Emiratis. 5 Pakistanis like me. 4 Filipinas. 2 Egyptians. And now you, a princess. I'm not a princess anymore. She glanced at me. Smiled. Yes, you are. Just a different kind. We arrived at the safe house at midnight. It was in a compound, the kind where foreign workers lived. Small apartments, crowded, beneath the notice of royalty and police. Perfect hiding place. Miriam led me up 3 flights of stairs. Knocked on a door, 3 times, pause, twice. A code. The door opened. A man stood there, Filipino, maybe 50, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Peace be with you, he said in Arabic. And also with you, Miriam replied. He looked at me. His eyes widened. Is this? Yes. This is Ameerah. He fell to his knees. Right there in the doorway. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you. We've been praying. We've been believing. Thank you. I didn't know what to do. I'd never had anyone kneel to thank God for me before. Please, stand up. I'm nobody. You're not nobody, he said, rising. You're the princess who said yes to Jesus in front of 800 people. Do you know what you've done? Do you know what you've started? I didn't. I had no idea. He pulled out his phone. Opened a video. Handed it to me. It was footage from my wedding. Someone had recorded it. The moment I'd said no. The moment Jesus had appeared. The moment 250 people had fallen to their knees and surrendered to him. This video has been shared 40,000 times in the last 3 hours, he said. 40,000. Across the Gulf. Across the Middle East. Across the world. People are seeing Jesus appear at a royal wedding. They're seeing Muslims worship him. They're seeing the impossible. I stared at the screen. At Jesus, visible, undeniable, real. At people weeping and praying. At my mother on her knees, surrendering. The government is trying to delete it, he continued. Calling it fake. Propaganda. Western manipulation. But it's too late. Too many people saw it in person. Too many people have the video. The truth is out. What's happening? I asked. To the people who surrendered? To my mother? My sister? His expression grew serious. They've been arrested. All 250 of them. Taken for questioning. We don't know their status yet. But we're praying. And we're not without hope, Jesus revealed himself. He's not going to abandon them now. My mother. My baby sister. Arrested because they'd chosen Jesus. Because I'd spoken truth. The guilt hit me like a wave. This is my fault. If I'd just stayed quiet. No. The man, I still didn't know his name, gripped my shoulders gently. This is not your fault. This is the enemy's fault. This is a government that hates truth. But more importantly, this is Jesus's plan. He knew what would happen. He appeared anyway. He's fighting for them, Ameerah. And he's already won. I wanted to believe that. Needed to believe that. What's your name? I asked. Pastor Daniel, he said. I lead the underground church here. 50 believers. We meet in secret. Risk our lives every time we gather. But Jesus is worth it. And now, he smiled, now we have you. A princess who chose the king. I stayed in that safe house for 3 days. Pastor Daniel's wife, Maria, brought me food. Simple food, rice, vegetables, chicken. Nothing like the palace cuisine. And it was the best meal I'd ever tasted. Because it was shared with family. Real family. Brothers and sisters in Christ who loved me not for my title or my wealth but because we belonged to the same Father. They taught me things. How to pray, really pray, conversationally, honestly. How to worship, singing songs to Jesus, raising hands, crying out in joy and freedom. How to read the Bible with others, discussing, questioning, learning together. I'd been a Muslim for 23 years. I'd been a Christian for 3 weeks. I was a baby. Learning to walk. Learning to see. Learning to live. On the 3rd day, Pastor Daniel came to me with news. We've made contact with an organization that helps persecuted Christians escape to Europe. They've agreed to help you. But we need to move tonight. The government is intensifying searches. Going door to door in some neighborhoods. It's only a matter of time before they find this place. What about you? I asked. What about Miriam? The church? We stay, he said simply. This is our mission field. These are our people. We can't leave. But you have a different calling. You need to tell your story. To the world. To show people that Jesus is real, that he appears to those who seek him, that he's still doing miracles in the most impossible places. I don't know how to do that. You'll learn. Jesus will teach you. Just like he taught us. That night, Miriam came for me again. Different car this time. We drove to the border, a crossing point between our country and the neighboring nation. Less monitored. More corrupt. The kind of place where the right amount of money could get you through. The church had provided money. Documents. A fake passport with my photo but a different name, Nadia Ahmed. Bangladeshi housemaid, returning home. I looked nothing like a princess anymore. My face bare of makeup. My clothes simple. My hair covered. Invisible. We reached the checkpoint at 2 a.m. Miriam handed me the documents. You don't speak unless spoken to. Keep your eyes down. If they ask questions, I'll answer. My heart pounded as we pulled up to the guard station. A board officer, maybe 25, probably working a night shift he hated, approached the window. Miriam handed him the documents. Our passports. Our exit permits. He glanced at them. At us. Back at the documents. Purpose of travel? My cousin is returning home, Miriam said in Urdu. Her visa expired. I'm driving her to the airport. He looked at me. I kept my eyes down. Played the part of a frightened housemaid. He studied the passport. Studied my face. My pulse roared in my ears. This was it. If he recognized me, if he'd seen the video, if he'd been given my description, this was over. Jesus, please. Please. You brought me this far. Please. The guard handed back the documents. Waved us through. Go. Miriam pressed the accelerator. We drove through. Past the checkpoint. Past the barrier. Past the border. Into a different country. Into freedom. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. We drove for another hour. Reached a small airport, private, for cargo mostly. But also used by 8 organizations. A man was waiting. Western. American, maybe. He approached the car. Ameerah, he asked. Yes. I'm John. From Hope International. We help persecuted Christians reach safety. We have a plane waiting. It'll take you to Turkey. From there, we'll get you to Germany. They've agreed to grant you asylum. Asylum. I was going to be a refugee. A princess turned refugee. The irony wasn't lost on me. I turned to Miriam. This woman who'd risked her life for me. Who'd driven me through the night. Who'd loved me like a sister. Thank you, I said. The words felt inadequate. Thank you for everything. She hugged me. Held me tight. You're my sister now. Forever. We'll see each other again. If not here, then in eternity. But I believe we'll see each other here first. Jesus isn't done with you. He's going to use you powerfully. Tell Pastor Daniel, tell Maria, tell everyone, I won't forget them. I'll keep praying. And I'll tell the world what Jesus did. I know you will. One more hug. Then I followed John to the plane. A small cargo plane. Basic. Uncomfortable. The opposite of the private jets I'd grown up flying on. And I'd never been more grateful. We took off as the sun was rising. I watched through the small window as my country, the only home I'd ever known, disappeared below. I'd lost a palace. A title. A family. An inheritance worth $400 million. I'd lost everything. And I'd never felt richer. Because I'd gained Jesus. I'd gained freedom. I'd gained a family that would never disown me. I'd gained a kingdom that would never end. The plane climbed higher. Into the clouds. Into the light. Into a future I couldn't see but no longer feared. Because Jesus was with me. And that was enough. The plane landed in Turkey 12 hours later. I'd never been so exhausted. Not physically, I'd slept on planes before, luxury planes with beds and pillows and 5-star service. But this was different. This exhaustion went soul deep. The weight of everything that had happened, saying no to Prince Khalid, watching Jesus appear, fleeing my country, leaving my mother and sister behind, it all crashed down on me somewhere over the Mediterranean. I cried. The ugly kind of crying that shakes your whole body. John sat across from me in the cargo hold, saying nothing, just handing me tissues and bottling water and letting me break. Because that's what I needed. To break completely. To let go of the princess I'd been. To grieve the life I'd lost. To mourn the family I'd never see again, at least not in this life. It's okay, John said finally, gently. Jesus is close to the brokenhearted. You're not alone in this. I believed him. Because I could feel Jesus there. In the cargo hold of that plane, 30,000 feet above the earth, with nothing to my name but borrowed clothes and a broken heart, he was there. And that presence was enough to keep me breathing. We landed in Istanbul. Another car. Another safe house, this one run by Turkish Christians who'd been helping refugees for decades. They'd seen it all. Muslims fleeing persecution. Christians fleeing ISIS. Women escaping honor killings. And now, a Saudi princess fleeing her own family. They treated me with such kindness. Such gentleness. Like I was precious. Valuable. Not because of my title, they didn't care about that. But because I was their sister. Because we shared the same father. I stayed there for 2 weeks while my asylum paperwork was processed. Germany had agreed to take me, they had a program for religious refugees. But bureaucracy took time. So I waited. And in that waiting, I learned what it meant to be a Christian. The Turkish believers taught me everything. How to pray without rituals. How to worship without rules. How to read the Bible not as a legal document but as a love letter from God. They taught me about grace. About forgiveness. About the fact that I didn't have to earn God's love, I already had it, fully, completely, eternally. They taught me that following Jesus wasn't about perfection. It was about surrender. About trusting him even when I couldn't see the path. About believing he was good even when life was hard. And life was hard. News from home was devastating. The 250 people who'd surrendered to Jesus at my wedding, they were being detained. Interrogated. Pressured to recant. Some had already been released after renouncing their conversion. But others were holding firm. Refusing to deny Jesus. Willing to face prison, torture, even death. My mother was among them. My youngest sister was among them. They were suffering because of me. Because I'd spoken truth. Because Jesus had appeared. The guilt was crushing. There were days I couldn't get out of bed. Days I wondered if I'd made the right choice. If I should have just stayed silent. Married Prince Khalid. Lived a lie to protect them. But then I'd read the Bible. And I'd see what Jesus said. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. Hate. Not literally. But comparatively. Love Jesus more. Choose him first. Even when it costs you everything. Even when it costs them everything. And I'd remember, Jesus didn't appear by accident. He knew what would happen. He knew people would be arrested. And he appeared anyway. Because he was calling them. Giving them a choice. Offering them the same eternal life he'd offered me. My mother had chosen. My sister had chosen. The 250 had chosen. They were suffering. But they were free. Free from lies. Free from empty religion. Free from the fear of death because they knew death wasn't the end. And Jesus was with them. Just like he was with me. I got the call on a Tuesday morning. My asylum had been approved. I'd be flying to Germany that Friday. Starting a new life. In a country I'd never visited. With a language I didn't speak. With no money, no family, no connections. Starting completely over. I should have been terrified. And part of me was. But another part, the part that had met Jesus, that had seen him appear, that had felt his presence every single day, that part was excited. Because this was adventure. This was faith. This was walking into the unknown with the God who knew everything. The night before I left Turkey, the believers threw me a party. Nothing fancy. Rice and vegetables and chicken. Cheap soda. Plastic plates. A cramped apartment full of refugees and believers and people who'd lost everything and gained Jesus. And it was the most beautiful party I'd ever attended. Better than state dinners with 5-star meals. Better than palace celebrations with champagne and caviar. Better than anything I'd experienced as a princess. Because this was family. Real family. The family of God. We sang worship songs, in Turkish, in Arabic, in English. I didn't know most of the words, but I sang anyway. Loudly. Off-key. With tears streaming down my face and my hands raised and my heart full. This was worship. Not obligation. Not ritual. Not performance. This was love poured out to the one who'd saved me. After the singing, Pastor Mehmet, the Turkish pastor who'd been hosting me, asked if I'd share my testimony. Tell everyone what Jesus had done. I'd never done that before. Never spoken publicly. Princesses were meant to be seen, not heard. But I wasn't a princess anymore. I stood up. Looked at the faces around me, Syrians, Iraqis, Iranians, Turks. People who'd fled war, persecution, death. People who'd lost everything and gained Jesus. My people. My name is Ameerah, I began. My voice shook. 3 months ago, I was a princess in a palace. I had everything money could buy. Designer clothes. Luxury cars. Servants who anticipated my every need. I ate from gold plates and slept in silk sheets and lived in a palace with 347 rooms. I paused. And I was dying inside. Nods around the room. They understood. They'd all been there. Different circumstances. Same emptiness. I'd been Muslim my entire life. I prayed 5 times a day. I fasted during Ramadan. I performed every ritual perfectly. And I felt nothing. Just emptiness. Just loneliness. Just this desperate sense that there had to be more than this. I told them about finding the Bible. About reading John 3 verse 16. About Jesus appearing in my bathroom. About the wedding where I said no. About Jesus appearing to 800 people. By the time I finished, half the room was crying. The other half was worshipping. Hands raised. Voices praising Jesus in a dozen languages. I lost everything, I said. My family. My country. My inheritance. $400 million. Gone. My mother sent one message after I left. Just 3 words, you are dead. I wiped tears from my face. I lost everything. But I gained Jesus. And he's worth more than all of it. More than the palace. More than the money. More than the title. He's worth everything. Pastor Mehmet stood up. Hugged me. Whispered in my ear, you're going to tell this story to millions. Jesus is going to use you powerfully. This is just the beginning. I didn't know if I believed him. But I wanted to. I arrived in Germany on a cold October morning. Frankfurt Airport. Gray skies. Rain. People rushing past me, speaking German I couldn't understand. I stood there with my one bag, borrowed clothes, a Bible, and the burner phone Miriam had given me, and I felt more alone than I'd ever felt. But then I remembered, I wasn't alone. Jesus was with me. In me. He'd promised he'd never leave me. Never forsake me. A woman approached. Blonde. Maybe 40. Holding a sign with my name, Ameerah. I'm Greta, she said in English. From the Refugee Resettlement Program. Welcome to Germany. She drove me to my new home. A 2-bedroom apartment in a neighborhood full of immigrants. Syrian families. Afghan families. African families. People from everywhere, fleeing everything, starting over. The apartment was tiny. Maybe 600 square feet. 1 bedroom. A small living room. A kitchen with basic appliances. A bathroom with a shower so small I had to crouch. My bedroom in the palace had been 2,000 square feet. But this apartment was mine. My space. My freedom. I stood in the middle of the empty living room and I laughed. Actually laughed. Because this was ridiculous. A princess living in a 600 square foot apartment. A girl who'd had servants living alone for the first time in her life. A woman who'd never cooked now standing in a kitchen trying to figure out how to turn on the stove. Ridiculous. Impossible. Beautiful. Greta showed me how things worked. The stove. The shower. The heating. The recycling system. Germans are serious about recycling. She gave me a welcome packet. Information about German classes. Job training programs. Support groups for refugees. You'll need to learn German, she said. It'll take time. But you're young. You'll adapt. Adapt. I'd been adapting my whole life. Adapting to palace rules. To royal expectations. To my father's demands. But this was different. This was adapting to freedom. Learning how to live without cages. She left. And I was alone. I walked through my tiny apartment. Ran my hand along the walls, plain white, no gold leaf. Looked out the window, no Gulf view, just other apartment buildings and a parking lot. I sat on the floor, no furniture yet, and I cried. Again. But not sad tears this time. Grateful tears. Thank you, I whispered. Jesus, thank you. For this apartment. For this new life. For freedom. Thank you. And I felt him there. In that tiny apartment. In that strange country. In that new life I didn't know how to navigate yet. He was there. And that was enough. The first few months were hard. I attended German classes 5 days a week. Struggled to learn the grammar, the pronunciation, the 1,000 rules that made no sense. I made mistakes constantly. Said embarrassing things accidentally. Like the time I tried to say I'm full after a meal but actually said something inappropriate that made the whole class laugh. I learned to cook. Burned rice. Ruined pasta. Set off the smoke alarm so many times my neighbors started ignoring it. But slowly, I learned. YouTube videos became my teacher. How to make basic meals. How to grocery shop. How to use German appliances. I learned to be alone. Really alone. No servants. No family. No guards. Just me. And at first, it was terrifying. The silence. The emptiness. The hours stretching with nothing to fill them. But then I learned to fill them with Jesus. I'd wake up early. Make coffee, learn to love German coffee. Sit by my window. Read my Bible. Pray. Journal. Talk to Jesus about everything. My fears. My loneliness. My hopes. My memories. And he'd talk back. Not audibly. But in my spirit. Impressions. Peace. Verses that jumped off the page and spoke directly to my situation. I found a church. A small international church that met in a rented school gymnasium. Services in English. People from everywhere, Africa, Asia, Middle East, South America. Refugees and immigrants and people who'd left everything to follow Jesus. My people. They welcomed me. Not as a princess. Not as a celebrity. Just as Ameerah. A sister. A fellow traveler. Someone learning to walk this faith journey. I made friends. Real friends. Sarah from Iran who'd fled religious persecution. James from Nigeria who'd escaped Boko Haram. Maria from Colombia who'd left gang violence. We'd meet for coffee, cheap coffee at a local cafe, and share our stories. Our struggles. Our victories. And slowly, I began to heal. The nightmares came less frequently. The memories of my father's threats faded. The guilt over my mother and sister lessened, not because I stopped caring, but because I learned to trust Jesus with them. To pray for them. To believe God was with them even when I couldn't be. I got news occasionally. Through underground channels. Secret messages passed through the network of believers. My mother was still in detention. But she was strong. Refusing to recant. Leading worship in her prison cell. Other women were coming to faith because of her testimony. My youngest sister had been released. Under house arrest. But alive. And still believing. Still following Jesus despite the cost, the $250 from the wedding. Some had recanted under pressure. Some had been released. But others remained. Holding firm. Suffering. But not giving up. They were my heroes. Far braver than I'd ever been. 6 months after arriving in Germany, I got a call from Pastor Mehmet in Turkey. Ameerah, I have a question. There's a Christian media organization. They interview persecuted believers. Share their stories. They want to interview you. Tell your story to the world. What do you think? My first instinct was fear. To tell my story publicly meant revealing my identity. Making myself a target. Confirming what my family already suspected. But then I remembered what Pastor Daniel had said in the safe house, you need to tell your story. To show people that Jesus is real. And I remembered what Jesus had said, you will be my witnesses. Yes, I said. I'll do it. The interview happened 2 weeks later. Via video call. They asked me everything. About my life in the palace. About finding the Bible. About Jesus appearing. About the wedding. About the escape. I told them everything. Held nothing back. Cried multiple times. Laughed a few times. Told the truth. The interview was posted online 3 days later. Within 24 hours, it had been viewed 500,000 times. Within a week, 3 million. People were watching. Sharing. Commenting. Muslims curious about Jesus. Christians encouraged by the testimony. Skeptics arguing it was fake. But the message was getting out, Jesus is real. He appears to those who seek him. He's worth losing everything for. I started getting messages. Hundreds of them. From people all over the world. From a girl in Saudi Arabia, I'm where you were. Empty. Desperate. Reading the Bible in secret. Pray for me. From a man in Dubai, I watched Jesus appear at your wedding. I can't stop thinking about it. How do I know if he's real? From a woman in Kuwait, I gave my life to Jesus after watching your story. My family doesn't know. I'm terrified. But I know it's true. From a former princess in Qatar, I thought I was the only one. Thank you for being brave. You've given me hope. Message after message. Hundreds. Then thousands. People who'd seen my story and were encountering Jesus because of it. Pastor Mehmet had been right. Jesus was using my story. Using my pain. Using my loss. Turning my mess into a message. My test into a testimony. It's been 2 years now since I left the palace. I live in the same small apartment. I've learned German, not perfectly, but well enough to have conversations, to make jokes, to navigate life here. I work part-time at a refugee center, helping other women who fled persecution. Women like me. Women who've lost everything and need to know they're not alone. I still miss my mother. There are days I cry thinking about her. Days I wonder if I'll ever see her again on this earth. But I know, I'll see her in eternity. Because she chose Jesus. And that choice is forever. I miss my sister. My old life. The good parts, anyway. The beauty. The security. The family meals, despite the dysfunction. But I don't miss the cage. I don't miss the emptiness. I don't miss the slow death of living a lie. I'm free now. Truly free. Free to worship Jesus openly. Free to read my Bible without fear. Free to tell my story. Free to be who God created me to be. And you know what? I've never been richer. I don't have gold plates anymore. I eat from IKEA dishes that cost $2 each. I don't have designer abayas. I shop at H&M and Zara and feel fancy when I find something on sale. I don't have a palace. I have a 600 square foot apartment with neighbors who play loud music and a radiator that clanks. And I've never been happier. Because I have Jesus. And he's enough. He's more than enough. He's everything. So let me talk to you now. Yes, you. Watching this. Reading this. Listening to this story. Maybe you're from the Gulf. Maybe you're royalty or wealth or power. Maybe you have everything the world says should make you happy, money, status, influence, luxury. But you're empty inside. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The golden cage. The beautiful prison. The slow death of having everything except the one thing that matters. I was you. I had 47 Hermes bags and zero freedom. I ate from gold plates and starved spiritually. I lived in a palace with 347 rooms and felt completely alone. Jesus is calling you. Right now. He sees you. He knows you. He understands the cage you're in. And he's offering you the same thing he offered me, freedom. Life. truth, love. It will cost you everything. I'm not going to lie to you. Following Jesus cost me my family, my country, my inheritance, my title. $400 million. Gone. But I gained eternity. I gained peace. I gained joy. I gained a father who will never disown me. A family that will never reject me. A kingdom that will never end. Is Jesus worth it? Yes. 1,000 times yes. 1,000,000 times yes. Or maybe you're Muslim. Maybe you're watching this and you're offended. Angry. Thinking I'm a traitor, an apostate, a fool who's been deceived by Western propaganda. I understand. I was taught the same things. Jesus is just a prophet. Muhammad brought the final revelation. The Quran is all you need. But let me ask you something, have you ever met Jesus? Have you ever truly sought him? Have you ever said, Jesus, if you're real, show me? Because I did. And he showed up. He appeared. He spoke. He changed my life. I'm not asking you to take my word for it. I'm asking you to seek him yourself. To read the gospel with an open heart. To pray and ask him to reveal himself to you. He will. I promise you. He's not hiding. He's not distant. He's pursuing you. Right now. The question is, will you respond? Or maybe you're a Christian. Maybe you're watching this and thinking, I've never suffered like that. I've never lost everything. My faith is easy and comfortable. Let me encourage you, be grateful. Thank God for the freedom you have. The safety. The ability to worship openly. But also, be willing. Be willing to lose it all if he asks. Be willing to suffer for him if that's his call. Be willing to say yes to Jesus even when it costs you everything. Because he's worth it. He's worth more than comfort. More than safety. More than anything this world offers. Let me pray with you. If you're watching this, if you're ready to give your life to Jesus, to choose him no matter what it costs, pray this with me. Jesus, I've been searching. I've been empty. I've been dying inside while looking alive on the outside. I've tried everything else. And nothing works. Nothing fills this emptiness except you. I believe you're real. I believe you're the Son of God. I believe you died for my sins, for my sins, specifically. And I believe you rose from the dead. I'm sorry for living without you. For trying to earn my way to God. For believing lies. For wasting time. Forgive me. Save me. Change me. I'm giving you my life. Right now. All of it. The good, the bad, the broken, the beautiful. It's all yours. I don't know what this will cost me. But I'm choosing you anyway. Because you're worth it. You're worth everything. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for pursuing me. Thank you for not giving up on me. I'm yours. Forever. Amen. If you prayed that prayer, if you just gave your life to Jesus, welcome to the family. You're my brother. My sister. You're part of the eternal kingdom now. It won't be easy. Following Jesus never is. But it's worth it. He's worth it. Find a church. Read your Bible. Pray every day. Connect with other believers. And when it gets hard, when you lose friends, when family rejects you, when the cost feels too high, remember, Jesus is with you. Always. Forever. He'll never leave you. Never forsake you. And remember my story. A princess who lost an earthly kingdom and gained an eternal one. If he did it for me, he'll do it for you. My name is Ameerah. It means princess. I was a princess of Saudi Arabia. Now I'm a daughter of the King of Kings. And that's the only title I'll ever need.